roll credits, we're diving into Mortal Kombat 2, the sequel bringing more fighters, bigger battles, and hopefully a lot more fatalities.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite the step up.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine trying to choreograph this magical, completely gravity-defying ninja fight.
Yeah.
But, you're trapped in a 100-degree storm-battered Australian summer.
Right. Not ideal.
Not at all. And you are like lugging around these massive, incredibly heavy IMAX cameras, all while dodging actual physical explosive blood packets going off inches from your face.
Yeah, that was the actual reality of making this movie.
It's wild.
Huh.
So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. Our mission today for you guys listening is to really unpack exactly how this franchise evolved.
Because it really did evolve, didn't it?
It did. We're looking at a series that went from, a fairly grounded mid-budget reboot back in 2021 to just this massive, maximalist cinematic event in 2026.
Yeah.
So we're going to explore how the filmmakers expanded this universe, how they managed to ground this reality-defying action with actual practical effects, and of course, how they leaned into the bloody nostalgic legacy of the arcade classics that so many of you grew up with.
It is a massive leap forward. I mean, if you look at the structure of that 2021 film, it was essentially a prologue, right?
It was all set up.
Exactly. It was setting the table, introducing the concept of the fighters, but it notoriously deferred the actual tournament.
Which drove some fans crazy.
Oh, completely. But with this sequel, the training wheels are totally off. We are finally at the main event. And the production footprint entirely reflects that narrative shift. You go from a relatively contained story to a sprawling fantasy epic.
The scale is just off the charts. I was actually looking at the financials, and the budget jumped by 45%, up to $80 million.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge jump.
Right. But what stood out to me isn't just the sheer number. It's how that money was deployed. It injected $68 million directly into the local Queensland economy in Australia.
That's amazing.
It created over 560 jobs. I mean, that isn't just a movie production. That is an industrial operation taking over a whole region.
It really is. And, that budget influx directly fueled the director, Simon McQuoid's new mandate for the sequel.
Yeah.
He had this philosophy he called maximalist.
Maximalist. Okay.
Yeah, he wanted to achieve this epic, sweeping cinematic scale, but, and this is key, without losing the emotional connectivity to the characters.
Right.
To do that, he actually cited the Star Wars television series, Andor, as a major visual inspiration.
Wait, Andor.
Yeah.
That is a really interesting comparison for, a fighting game movie.
I know, it sounds weird at first, but it makes sense when you look at the mechanics of why Andor works. That show is famous for building massive, tangible sets so that the world feels tactile and dirty and lived in.
Oh, right. It doesn't feel like a green screen box.
Yeah, exactly. McQuoid wanted you to believe in the reality of these realms, even when they are entirely fantastical places like Outworld or the Netherrealm.
Okay, I actually had to push back on this a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Because, we hear this all the time from Hollywood directors, right? The whole bigger is better mentality.
Sure.
But usually, when an action franchise doubles its budget, the filmmakers just get kind of lazy. They lose their soul in a sea of green screens, and the movie becomes this weightless CGI sludge.
Yeah, the Marvel effect sometimes.
Right. It's like a magic trick.
Yeah.
If the audience knows the elephant is just a digital projection, the sense of danger completely evaporates. So if they had 6 different visual effects vendors working on this movie, how on earth did they avoid that exact trap?
That is the ultimate challenge with modern blockbusters, honestly. And it's exactly what McQuoid and his VFX supervisor, Chris Godfrey, were actively fighting against.
Okay.
Their core mandate was an incredibly strict rule. Shoot it real first.
Shoot it real first.
Yeah. They didn't just throw up green screens in an empty warehouse. They took over the Village Roadshow sound stages and built tangible, intricate, massive physical sets. They constructed real terrain for Outworld and the Netherrealm.
So they're building the foundation in the real world before the computers ever get involved.
Precisely. By using physical environments to ground the scene, the lighting behaves naturally. The actors have something to actually touch and interact with.
Which changes the performance completely.
Exactly. So when those 6 different VFX vendors eventually came in to, extend the skies or build the distant mountains, the foundation was already rooted in physics. The digital layer is strictly an extension, designed so it never announces itself to you. It blurs the lines seamlessly.
Which is incredibly ambitious. especially considering how they were shooting it. They shot this with IMAX cameras, bringing in cinematographer Stephen F. Windon, who famously shot Avatar, The Way of Water.
Oh, yeah, a
Yeah.
legend.
But doing this wasn't just a walk in the park. My brain immediately goes to the logistics. Because of the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strikes, the production schedule got severely delayed.
It did. The strike pushed their filming window directly into the absolute worst time of year for this kind of work.
The Queensland summer.
Yes.
Like
grueling, storm-filled Queensland summer.
All right, so you have this massive crew working on physical sets under blazing intense heat, battling sudden tropical storms,
Awful conditions.
and you are trying to maneuver these massive, heavy IMAX cameras through the mud to capture a dark fantasy epic. That sounds like a nightmare.
It was incredibly taxing.
Yeah.
But because they committed to that grounded physical reality despite the elements, that philosophy had to trickle down into every other department.
Right.
It completely dictated how they handled the franchise's absolute trademark, which is the ultra-violent combat and the fatalities.
Yes, let's get into the violence.
Oh,
Because in a video game, you just press a button and a head flies off.
right.
In live action, capturing that reality is a totally different beast.
What's fascinating is the mechanical pipeline they engineered to achieve that violence. It wasn't just actors showing up on set and swinging at empty air for a camera.
How do they do it?
Every major fight scene went through a rigorous 3-stage process. First was the digital pre-visualization.
So previs.
Yeah, previs. Basically creating a crude animated video game version of the fight first, so they knew exactly how to move those heavy IMAX cameras.
Oh, that makes sense. You map it out entirely beforehand.
Exactly. Stage 2 involved intensive weapons boot camps, so the cast developed actual muscle memory. And Stage 3 was the execution of what McCoy affectionately called the gore gags.
Gore gags. I love that industry term. But what that actually means on set is that instead of painting CGI blood onto the frame in post-production, they went remarkably old school.
Very old school.
We're talking practical prosthetics, silicone limbs, and real physical squibs exploding on the actors.
Exactly. For those unfamiliar, a squib is essentially a tiny, controlled, explosive charge taped under an actor's clothing, and it's hooked up to a packet of fake blood.
Right.
When the punch lands, a technician detonates it, and you get a real physical spray.
But I have to marvel at the sheer logistical anxiety of that. Because IMAX cameras use massive, expensive film stock, and the depth of field is incredibly shallow, meaning keeping things in focus is hard.
Very hard.
If a physical squib misfires or goes off a half-second too early, you can't just easily yell action and reset. You have to stop everything.
Oh, totally.
You have to clean sticky fake blood off an intricate physical set. You have to put the actor in a brand new, clean wardrobe. You have to reload a massive camera.
It requires a flawless synchronization between the stunt coordinators, the practical effects team, and the cinematographer. A single missed beat costs thousands of dollars and hours of time.
High stakes.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But the payoff is that visceral, undeniable impact on screen, and that commitment to practical, in-camera reality extended directly into the creature and costume designs, too.
Oh, yeah.
Take the character of Baraka, played by C.J. Bloomfield.
Oh, Baraka. The guy with the giant blades in his arms and a face that is basically just a giant, terrifying mouth full of needle teeth.
That's the one. In most modern movies, a character with a face that deformed would be achieved by putting the actor in a gray suit covered in tracking dots and animating the head later.
Like a mocap suit.
Exactly. But here, they achieved his look with full facial prosthetics and articulated animatronic teeth.
Wait, animatronics, so they were motorized.
Yes. Instead of relying on digital animation, Bloomfield wore a complex prosthetic cowl over his head with mechanical components controlling the jaw and teeth.
Wow.
So when he snarled, tiny motors helped articulate the movement. It means the actor's facial muscles push against real silicone and the set lighting casts natural, real shadows inside the mouth.
That is profoundly unsettling, but brilliant.
It looks so good.
And they didn't just isolate him against a green screen either. They placed this animatronic monster inside a heavily detailed, physically built Tarkatan village set. I read they even populated that set with child extras, just to give the mutant community an authentic, lived-in feel.
Yeah, they really went for it.
That completely changes how an actor performs. You aren't pretending to be a monster in a void. You are a monster in a breathing village.
Building a practical Tarkatan village solves the environment, but you still have to dress the supernatural characters walking around in it. The costume design operated almost like practical visual effects in itself.
Oh, for sure.
Cappy Ireland's work on Noob Saibot is a perfect example of this.
Okay, let's unpack Noob Saibot, because his lore is wild. This is Baihan, the original Sub-Zero who died in the first movie.
Right.
He gets resurrected in the Netherrealm, which is essentially this universe's hell, as a shadowy, wraith-like assassin.
Right. And making a character made of shadows look interesting on camera is incredibly difficult. Ireland designed this low-gloss, textured black rubber underskin for him, paired with dark gray pearlescent armor.
Pearlescent armor.
Yeah.
Meaning the paint shifts color depending on the angle of the light hitting it.
Exactly. That pearlescent finish was a very deliberate mechanical choice. It was specifically engineered to catch and reflect the deep orange and red light of the hellish Netherrealm environment.
Oh, that's clever.
It allows a pitch black costume to dynamically interact with the firelight, giving it a supernatural shimmer without using a single digital effect.
That's so smart.
Hmm.
But, we're talking about all these heavy practical elements. I heard there was one specific thing about Noob Saibot's design that drove the production team completely insane.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, the hat.
The hat.
In the video games, Noob Saibot wears this long-sided, drooping headgear. In a digital game engine, you don't have to worry about physics.
Right, it just floats there perfectly.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
in the real world, translating a gravity-defying shape into a physical object that an actor can actually fight in is a nightmare. It throws off the center of gravity.
Of course it does.
If you try to do a spinning high kick with a massive weighted piece of fabric swinging from your head, you are going to lose your balance and fall over. The costume department had to relentlessly re-engineer the weight distribution just so the stuntman could move.
I can only imagine the trial and error there.
Huh?
But I actually have a major question about shooting Noob Saibot.
Sure. What is it?
In the games, his entire fighting gimmick is that he literally projects his own shadow out of his body to fight alongside him.
Yeah, the shadow clone.
How do you visually separate a literal dark shadow clone from a man who is already clad entirely in black, especially when they're moving at lightning speed across an IMAX frame?
That's where the mechanics of color theory come into play.
Hmm.
The filmmakers knew that a black-on-black fight would just turn into visual mush. It's like trying to watch a black cat run around in a pitch-dark room. If you don't change the tint of the cat or the room, it's just a void.
Right, the eye has nothing to grab onto.
So they used very specific color grading to solve it. The shadow clone within him is treated almost as a distinct character. They utilized a deep, dark purple for the shadow clone's manifestation while keeping the graphite gray and black for Baihan himself.
Oh, so the purple highlights it.
Yeah. By shifting the shadow to purple, they gave the viewer's eye a necessary anchor. That subtle color separation allows you to track the complex combat choreography clearly against the bright orange-red fire of the environment.
That attention to detail is what separates good action from great action.
Absolutely.
But, having beautifully designed tactile environments and incredibly smart color theory, it's all meaningless without actors who can execute the grueling choreography.
That's true.
Which brings us to the massive roster expansion and the elephant in the room, Johnny Cage.
Yes. Carl Urban stepping into the role of Johnny Cage was the most highly anticipated element of this sequel. And he took the physical requirements incredibly seriously.
I read about those.
He described it as the most physically demanding role of his entire career.
Which is really saying something for a guy who was in Lord of the Rings, played Judge Dredd, and has been in the Marvel Universe.
Seriously.
I was looking at his prep work, and he actually researched the role by attending youth karate tournaments. He wanted to observe the aggressive sideline parents and understand the specific, hyper-competitive environment that a character like Johnny would have grown up in.
That's a unique way to research.
It is. And physically, he was doing agility drills, speed drills. He even learned to do his own splits for Johnny's iconic low-blow nut punch move. He apparently nearly tore a muscle doing it.
Ouch.
Oh, and a fun piece of trivia for you guys. Urban's real-life son, Indy, makes a cameo playing the teenage Johnny in a retro YouTube video within the film.
That's a fantastic Easter egg. But looking at the casting of Carl Urban as a whole, it serves a very necessary narrative function beyond just his physical commitment.
Well, the casting is deeply ironic, isn't it?
How so?
Carl Urban is currently at the absolute peak of his career, starring in The Boys. He just came off a season where his character was mostly bedridden, which he joked left him with plenty of fuel in the tank for an action role.
Oh, right.
But in this movie, he is playing a washed-up, incredibly vain 90s action star whose career is completely tanked. It's a hilarious contrast to his real life.
It is, but Urban was cast for his tonal control. The director understood that Johnny Cage's vanity, his constant sarcasm, and his fourth wall-breaking humor could easily derail a dark fantasy movie if handled poorly.
Because it could get too goofy.
Exactly. Urban has this rare, calibrated ability to ground broad comedy. He makes the arrogance relatable rather than just feeling like a walking cartoon character. He provides a human, cynical anchor amid all the supernatural madness.
Speaking of human connections, we also get the introduction of the sisterhood between Kitana and Jade.
Yes.
Adelaine Rudolph and Tati Gabrielle brought these iconic assassins to life. And what's brilliant is that the production actively utilized their real-life, pre-existing chemistry, since they starred together for years on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
That existing bond translates perfectly to their dynamic on screen. But what's really compelling is how the filmmakers designed entirely different weapon languages to highlight their distinct personalities, and how that dictated the camera work.
Wait, what do you mean by weapon languages?
Kitana uses elegant wushu fighting techniques with her steel fans. Wushu is circular, flowing, and highly acrobatic. To capture that, the camera needs to use wide, sweeping angles to capture the continuous motion.
Okay, I see.
Jade, on the other hand, uses a heavy quarterstaff and spear. Her style is percussive, linear, and heavy. The camera needs to feel the impact, moving in closer on her strikes.
Very different vibes.
Entirely. They film their combined fights fluidly, almost like a lethal ballet, in these massive soundstage courtyards, really contrasting those two distinct visual styles.
It's such a sharp contrast to the brutal, feral brawling of someone like Baraka.
Oh, definitely.
But we really can't talk about brutality without addressing the most shocking moment of the film, the absolute brutal end of the first film's main character, Cole Young.
Yes. The filmmakers made an incredibly bold and highly requested narrative choice there.
Bold is certainly one word for it. They have a villain, Shao Kahn, completely cave in Cole's head with a massive hammer, and then he casually throws his remains into a neon green acid pit.
It's a lot.
It is a jaw-dropping graphic fatality, and let's be honest about why it happened. It was a direct response to the fan base. Hardcore fans did not love this newly created original character, taking the spotlight away from the classic fighters in the 2021 film.
It was a brutal, definitive send-off. But what's fascinating is how actor Louis Tan reacted to his character's violent demise.
Was he upset?
Not at all. He understood the assignment. He recognized that the legacy game fans wanted the focus back on the classic mythology.
Right.
But because this is the Mortal Kombat universe, death is very rarely a permanent condition. Tan actually teased in interviews that he might return to the franchise in the future, possibly resurrected as a completely different character.
Which would be a wild twist.
Truly.
But I think by pulling off these intense physical action scenes and showing that they are willing to listen to the fans by adjusting the roster, the filmmakers really earned the right to playfully remix the deep, convoluted lore of the original games. And man, they went all in on the nostalgia and the Easter eggs.
They absolutely did. And part of honoring that lore meant actively acknowledging past mistakes. Writer Jeremy Slater explicitly scrapped the controversial Arcana system from the first film.
Oh, thank goodness. For those who don't remember, Arcana was the system where fighters had to unlock their superpowers through a magical dragon birthmark.
Right. It was heavily criticized. Slater actually compared it to the introduction of midichlorians in the Star Wars prequels.
That's a perfect comparison.
It was a clunky, unnecessary, pseudoscientific over-explanation for what should just be inherent magic. By dropping that system entirely, they freed the narrative up to focus on the actual tournament stakes.
It leaves so much more room for the stuff we actually want, like the visual Easter eggs. They used the exact typography from the actual Mortal Kombat 2 arcade game in the opening credits.
A nice touch.
And I have to express my pure geeky joy over this. They brought back the blue portal from the Sega Genesis version of the game. It just goes to show that adapting video games today isn't just about adapting the plot summary.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they are adapting the specific visceral memories you have. It's about the memory of sitting cross-legged on a carpet, playing a Sega Genesis on a blurry CRT TV in the 90s, listening to the hum of the console. They are adapting the sensory vibe of our childhoods, not just the text.
That is a profound way to look at modern adaptation. It is entirely about sensory nostalgia, and that philosophy extends directly to the audio legacy of the film.
The music, right?
Composer Benjamin Wallfisch returned and completely reimagined the iconic Techno Syndrome track from the 1990s movie.
The ultimate pump-up song.
Exactly. But he recorded this new version in 7.1 surround sound, utilizing incredibly heavy percussion and distorted synth bass. The bass frequencies were mixed so low and loud that they actually treat the music almost like a physical weapon in the theater, designed to really shake your seat.
And the best part, they got Ed Boon, the actual co-creator of the original video game, to not only make a physical cameo in the film as a bartender, but to provide the vocals for the track.
Yeah, that was amazing.
He's the one doing the iconic guttural "get over here" shout. They even included a cross-cultural cumbia-inspired version of the theme called Mortal Kumbia, blending the lore with a rhythmic Latin American dance style. It's brilliant.
It really is.
But while they are honoring the past, they also made some major narrative deviations to set up the future, didn't they?
They did. In a very significant shift from the game's traditional storyline, the film gives Kitana the honor of killing Shao Kahn on screen, which is a climactic victory that historically belongs to the character Liu Kang.
Why make that specific change?
Because it fundamentally changes her arc. It turns her journey from a simple warrior's path into a deeply emotional, resonant revenge story.
I see.
She is finally healing the childhood trauma inflicted by Shao Kahn when he conquered her realm and murdered her father. It gives the violence emotional weight.
It makes her journey so much more than just swinging cool steel fan blades around.
Exactly. And while resolving her arc, the film aggressively sets the stage for the already in development Mortal Kombat 3.
They don't slow down.
Not at all. They end the film by sending Shinnok's amulet, a massively powerful artifact, to the Netherrealm for safekeeping. They tease the villainous partnership known as the Deadly Alliance between the sorcerers Quan Chi and Shang Tsung. And, crucially, tying back to Cole Young, they introduce the concept of dead champions being resurrected and corrupted as undead revenants.
So Louis Tan really might come back as a villain.
It's highly probable. If we synthesize all of the mechanics we've discussed, the practical effects, the color theory, the casting, the true success of Mortal Kombat 2 is its structural confidence.
Yeah?
The filmmakers looked at what didn't work in the 121 film, like the Arcana explanations, and they confidently discarded them. Instead, they leaned heavily into the rich operatic mythology of Shinnok, the Netherrealm, and the ancient tournaments.
They embrace the weirdness.
Totally. They aren't just making a martial arts brawler anymore. They are actively building a sprawling, dark fantasy epic.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Before we sign off today, I want to leave you with a fascinating thought to ponder about where media is heading.
Okay.
Alongside the release of this massive cinematic spectacle, the marketing team released an interactive playlist generator online. It literally lets fans choose their fighter on a screen, which then unlocks personalized, character-specific soundtracks based on their choices.
That's a fun marketing tool.
It is, but consider what that signals for the future of entertainment. We are rapidly moving toward an era where the passive experience of sitting back and watching a movie and the active experience of leaning forward and playing a video game are completely blurring together in our daily media consumption. You aren't just watching the universe unfold anymore. You are actively interacting with its elements.
It raises a vital question about how we will consume blockbuster narratives in the next decade. The strict boundaries between player and viewer are dissolving in real time.
And that wraps our deep dive into Mortal Kombat 2. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share with your fellow movie fans, and let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more flawless victories.